I think we can all pretty much agree that YouTubers are some of the worst people on the face of the earth. And you know, nothing better demonstrates that fact than when they attempt to channel normal human emotions and try to make an apology. Now, since 95% of these apologies come off like they were generated by an android dwelling at the very bottom of the uncanny valley, it's only right for me to analyze them through a lens befitting their level of sincerity. A tier list. I know what you're thinking. Toad, you moron. Tier lists haven't been funny or popular for like 2 months now. And yes, you're right. But that's okay, because I'm the best and funniest YouTuber on this platform, so it really doesn't matter. Let me just preface this video by acknowledging that I know f*** all about most of the people on this list. I don't follow what most people would consider mainstream YouTube drama, and I usually don't find out about what happened until several months or years later when I decide to spend 45 hours researching the obscure details for one of my autistic 30-minute videos. So please forgive me if I mess up on some of the details, or tell me how much of a moron I am in the comments section. I really don't care. I just want to have a laugh at some e-celebs, and no amount of minor details are gonna make their apologies any less entertaining to me. So in order to expedite this process and try to keep myself from dragging each person's story out and turning this into yet another half hour of inane BS that I have to force into being interesting, I've decided to group each row into similar stories. Row 1 is obviously the beauty community, or as I've quickly come to realize, absolute unadulterated cancer. Row 2 is people who said the N-word, which it turns out is a pretty common theme amongst big YouTubers. Not that I care if they do, but everybody else sure seems to. Row 3 is people I'm regretfully and shamefully familiar with. Row 4 is Jewish YouTubers, and Row 5 is, Row 5's gonna make you want to take a shower. First up, we've got James Charles, Jeffree Star, and Toddy. This little love triangle made an absolute spectacle out of the beauty community, though it's not like it really needed any help. So you got this 40-year-old broad who uses the word dope unironically.
I'd rather put that $100,000 into research and creating a really dope product that people really love, and that's why they come back for more.
Making an exposed video on a 19-year-old kid who she supposedly considers a son. She was pretty melodramatically angry because he made a sponsored post on Instagram for one of her competitors' vitamin products in exchange for upgraded Coachella tickets, as his didn't provide the level of security he needed. Then she accused him of being a sexual predator who tries to use his influence to turn straight guys gay. Went from 0 to 100 real quick on that one, huh? Now, if that video hadn't included the portion where she called him a sexual predator, it wouldn't have had that much of an impact. Guaranteed. Without it, it's just some 40-year-old woman whining about an immature, flamboyant 19-year-old gay kid acting like an immature, flamboyant 19-year-old gay kid. I mean, don't get me wrong. I find James Charles intolerable, and I would never watch him for anything other than this sort of dumpster fire. Dumpster fires! But when it comes down to it, a 40-year-old woman making false allegations of sexual misconduct because she's worried about sales numbers is probably one of the most pathetically disgusting things I've seen a YouTuber do in quite a while. I mean, like, baseline for influencers is milking their fans for as much money as possible, but full life ruination because someone sold ad space to your competitor? It begs the question, where's this lady's husband during all this? Does he know what she's doing? So after this video, people started unsubscribing from James in the hundreds of thousands and eventually millions. Everyone started making videos about it, and some dude running around in clown makeup named Jeff threw his 2 cents in. Now I can give you 3 reasons right off the top of my head why you shouldn't trust this guy. Reason 1, face tattoo. Reason 2, neck tattoo. Reason 3, finger tattoo. Remember kids, no more than a 3/4 sleeve, and it can only tie into one side of your chest, and only if you plan on working out until you die. Jeff put out a perfectly rational tweet claiming that James was a danger to society and quote tweeted his underage younger brother telling him his big brother was a predator and that he needed to shut the fuck up. As we find out later, his brother was actually tweeting about being bullied, not James's drama. A real class act there, Jeff. It's always a good sign when you're bullying children. Now, here's where we get into the apologies. So first we've got James's apology, which is pretty bad. He's got this gross white residue in the corners of his mouth the whole time that makes me want to vomit. And his attempts at summoning up tears comes off like baby's first acting class.
Mom, I need you to know that you were the most important person in my life. And that you are an amazing mother. And I don't know what I would do without you. And I'm so grateful for everything that you've done for me and the lessons that you have taught me. And and everything that you continue to do for me and my brother. And I need you to know that.
I don't know why he uploaded this video. I'm guessing he was just freaking out and not thinking clearly. E-celebs aren't really known for their temperance or forethought. Now when I'm ranking this, I've got to consider its effectiveness based on performance and damage control. As far as performance goes, it racked up more than 50 million views before it was deleted, which is probably a few $100,000 in ad revenue, but when I checked, it wasn't monetized. And it only exacerbated his sub loss to about 3 million and turned him into a meme, so I'm gonna have to say not great on damage control. It's certainly not convincing me he's sorry, but as we find out after he uploaded his own exposed video, he really had no reason to be. All in all, he should have never made it because he wasn't in the wrong and he's not a very good actor. But at least it got people talking about him, so I guess I'll give it a D. A few days before James released the video where he point by point proved that absolutely everything Toddy said about him was a lie, she uploaded a video called Why I Did It, which a lot of people felt was very genuine and from the heart, and I'd have to agree, but not for the same reason as most people. This isn't a woman who is sorry. This is a woman who's terrified. You can bet James let her know that he wasn't going to take it lying down and that the new nearly 3 million subs she managed to siphon off of him were about to find out that they'd been lied to right along with everybody else. Right off the bat, the first thing she does is start downplaying it.
Really, when I made that video, I thought that I would be the one that would take the hit. You know, I thought I was going against, millions and millions of subscribers, and that my separate part of the internet, my 5 million, because this is how crazy this has gotten, would be affected, and that I would be the one losing subscribers for speaking up, and that I was going against someone with a lot more power.
Yeah, I bet you did think you were the one that was going to lose subscribers. I bet you thought, wow, I'm really overblowing this and acting like a giant baby over nothing. No normal person cares so much about vitamins. But you know what will make them care? If I call him a sexual predator. It's the Me Too era, after all. Doesn't matter how powerful he is or if he actually did anything wrong, all I need is an accusation and I'll be gold. Give me a break. She knew exactly what she was doing. She knew exactly how fucked up it was, and she didn't care because, like every e-celeb, she only cares about money. The rest of her video, she tries to paint the situation as if she was just a concerned friend making a last-ditch effort to try and save someone she felt she could no longer reach in private because their fame and money had turned them into a monster. Basically, an absolute pile of bullshit. I understand most people don't spend hours on end editing videos, so it may seem like she was genuinely upset, but for Christ's sake, it doesn't take a genius to spot the fact that the tears only show up directly after jump cuts. I mean, look at this. Just look. There it is. Yeah, and there's another one. Yeah, there it is again. Jesus, Toddy, you are a failure. F. Easily an F. The biggest F of this entire list, actually. Even if James didn't blow you out of the water. My God. So now we've just got Jeff left. Basically, he's a total psychopath. I mean, the eyes alone are probably enough to give it away, but there's also this perfectly executed apology. He takes all the blame for the insane shit with zero emotion and makes it clear that he's gonna cease fire. I'm sure this is only because he was outmaneuvered by James after his video, but it's more of a draw than a checkmate. Gotta give this one a B. Turns out psychopaths are really good at being YouTubers, so if you are one, you don't need to kill people anymore, because you can probably cause more mass damage to the population by becoming an e-celebrity. Now on to row 2, what I like to call the N-word crew. First up is Tana Mojo. Basically, she's everything you want to avoid when picking out a wife or raising your daughter. I'm not really sure what her content is supposed to be or why people actually watch it. According to her About Me section, she's a poor demonetized content creator, which is just a straight up lie. I actually couldn't find a single video that wasn't peppered with ads, including her apology. She came under fire a few years back when some videos surfaced of her being really racist as a kid, not in like an ironic or funny way. Her way of trying to weasel out of this was to say that she didn't know what the words meant as a kid, which is obviously bullshit just by the tone of how she was saying it.
You fucking
Then she decided to change her Twitter handle to Black Lives Matter and claim she was a social activist by using her platform to spread the message of racism being bad. Pretty much the most disrespectful, obvious pandering you could possibly imagine. Like, if you pitched her behavior to a South Park writing staff as a parody of a politician who panders to minorities, they'd reject it and tell you to be more subtle next time. Obviously, everyone saw right through it, so she decided to be more proactive with her activism in the stupidest way possible and tell iDubbbz he should kill himself for using the N-word and retard. The tweet itself really demonstrates how little she understands about the argument she's trying to make to earn a a few good boy points on the internet. I'm obviously for saying whatever you want, but I have to censor myself to keep my channel from getting deleted. But it's not difficult to wrap my head around the argument for censorship. Essentially this: words have power, and using words that have been historically used to degrade other people causes harm, so you should never do it. If she really believed that, she wouldn't censor the N-word and then spell out the word retard. The mentally handicapped have been far more oppressed than any other group in history. It's only within the last 50 years that we've started treating them like normal human beings in the West, and in most of the world they're still just tossed in the gutter and ignored. Sort of like Tana will be sometime in her mid-30s. So iDubbbz decides to make a Tana content cop, and it's probably one of my favorite videos of all time. It exposes her little activist LARP for what it is, the entire internet starts mocking her, and she decides to make an apology video. The video isn't good by any stretch of the imagination. It got downvoted into oblivion, and it took 25 minutes and 150 jump cuts to say, "Sorry, and I apologize." She also filled it with ads because, like all vapid e-celebs, she lacks a conscience and doesn't understand that you don't get paid to be sorry. It's really not especially bad. It's kind of the stock standard one should expect from someone who doesn't understand any emotion other than the dopamine hit they get from their viewers constantly telling them how amazing they are. If you look at her social blade, you'd think this whole thing had completely crippled her channel, but the huge dip is actually just a glitch that caused her to lose 1 million subs for one day. Really, it just stagnated her growth for about a year, so I'm gonna give it a C. Keemstar also got the content cop treatment, but it wasn't actually for saying the N-word. It was for trying to act like some sort of cringy mob boss of YouTube. Afterwards, the passive-aggressive little pussies that got bullied by Keemstar decided to make some videos calling him out.
No, but seriously guys, I've always disagreed with a lot of the stuff that Keemstar's done in his past, but I never saw it as that much of an issue until recently, because recently he's gone from being a complete asshole to doing some borderline fucking criminal shit on the shit stain that is the internet.
No, Leafy. You didn't have that much of an issue with it before iDubbbz made his content cop because you were too much of a chicken shit to be the first one to call him out. It's actually a good thing for Keemstar that these mongoloids like Grade A, Under A, and Leafy weren't the first ones to call him out, because they didn't make any actual tangible points. They just pulled up out-of-context trolling videos to make him look as bad as possible. They weren't actually out to critique his behavior, they just wanted to jump into the power vacuum that developed after he started bleeding subs and it looked like he would never recover. So Keemstar gets a golden opportunity. He quietly corrects all the spastic behavior iDubbbz called him out for without ever addressing how much of an ass he was being. Then he makes an apology video for the old out-of-context racist clips that started circulating again and exposed the commentary channels for being the little weasels they were at the same time. And the apology he made? Absolutely perfect. 10 out of 10 stuck the landing. I mean, just look at how sincere he seems. There's zero jump cuts. You would almost think that there's actually a human in there. Now, I would give this a solid A, maybe even an S. It's convincing, he addresses all the points he needs to address, he makes the commentary channels look like the opportunistic pigs they are. Unfortunately, Keemstar is a fucking idiot, and he deleted his apology and replaced it with this robotic-sounding 45-minute tism fit.
I'm in a position where no matter what I do, I receive criticism for. I try to defend myself, and people say that I'm playing the victim card. I go on the attack, and people say I'm being childish and over-dramatic.
Based on statistics I made up in my head, this abomination of a video delayed his recovery by about 6 months. Keemstar gets an F for fucking idiot. I never even heard of Laura Lee until I started making this, and I just searched apology, and she was one of the first ones that came up. She's just your generic makeup channel, but she made the mistake of starting a feud with Jeffree Star, which resulted in people digging up her old racist tweets that honestly read like the shitposting of an edgy 13-year-old that just found out about pole. Now, this is very bad if you're a member of the beauty community. Besides the social and political stance of the fan base being about a mile to the left of Bernie Sanders, the crowd is always looking for someone to burn down just for a laugh, which is exactly what happened. Her apology is pretty awful. I'd break it down for you, but honestly, it sounds like a different language, and I barely speak this one.
It's hard. It's probably the hardest things I've ever done. I'm so sorry.
It didn't work, everyone made fun of her for it, and her channel is still hemorrhaging subs about 6 months later. I'd put it in the F tier, but it's actually pretty unintentionally funny, so I'll bump it up to an E. PewDiePie has apologized for a lot of dumb shit, but obviously since he's in the N-word category, we're talking about the time he accidentally said the N-word while streaming a competitive game.
What a fucking nigga. Jeez, oh my god, what the fuck? Sorry, but what the fuck?
Anyone who's spent even a moderate amount of time online gaming knows that talking trash in the most extreme way possible is just as much a part of the game as the gameplay itself. I'd have liked to see PewDiePie defend that, but I get why he didn't. Most people who aren't a part of gaming culture can't wrap their heads around any aspect of it. I mean, case in point, look at the new Sonic movie. The apology was short, to the point, sounded like a professional press release, and satisfied most of his subs. He's so popular, he probably didn't even need to make it, but he did, and it wasn't bad, so I'm gonna put it in the B tier. Now, we've got all the YouTubers whose stories I've actually researched for a video. First up, Mundane Matt. For those of you who don't know, this guy is basically that dude in high school that was always hanging around your friend group and acting like he was just one of the guys, even though everyone was making fun of him right to his face. Before he burned himself to the ground on livestream, he was most well known for crying like a little girl over his YouTube play button.
And we'd like to recognize you and all your hard work with the silver play button. A small token of our esteem and respect.
So pretty much every video that ever made fun of him would get flagged down, and everyone knew he was doing it but had no proof. Matt decided to jump onto a show called The Kill Stream, which had just been flagged down after playing an old video of his where he used the N-word for a skit. He just had to make sure he was cool with the boys who would make fun of him every time he showed his face. Instead, he ended up getting baited into showing his YouTube report history and proving to the entire world that he had a gelatinous column of soy in place of his spine.
Matt, I want you to say right now to the fucking to the stream for Dame Pesos. I want you to say, "I am sorry, I am a soy-filled bitch," and flagged your fucking videos.
I am sorry. I am sorry that I flagged them.
No. For doing what you did. I am sorry, I am a soy-filled bitch and flagged your videos.
I'm sorry, I'm a soy-filled bitch and flagged your videos.
I want to say he waited like 3 weeks to put out an apology, and instead of making a video, posted it on Tumblr like a 13-year-old girl. Obviously, F tier. Next up, we've got the neighborhood internet tough guy, Dongaloid. He was making a substantial living off YouTube for about 6 months by having live streams where he would let speds come on and yell at each other. However, he dug himself his own grave by not being able to control his manlet rage and challenging everyone who upset him to a fistfight. Eventually, he fell out with his mentally unstable cokehead of a co-host, Andy Worski, and challenged him to a fight as well. Andy was the first person to accept. Apparently, Donga was a bit worried about the prospect of getting his head caved in by a 135-pound Canadian with a beer gut and fighting skills on par with a disabled toddler because he deliberately sabotaged his paperwork and didn't show up to the fight. After spending a good week or two blaming everyone but himself for his failure as a man and losing all but his most fanatic followers, Donga came out with an apology, where he graciously accepted the blame, repeating himself for an approximately 60-minute live stream, rife with his signature dead air. Then he deleted the apology and continued to blame everyone but himself and became the laughingstock of the internet. I'm gonna put him in the F tier for fucking crippled. Now we have Veronica Wang, who I covered in my last video. She's a lot like Tana Mojo. If you see this girl in the streets, you're gonna want to give her a wide berth, lest her powerful aura drag you down to her level of basicness. She was turned into the punching bag of YouTube for a few months after she threw a temper tantrum and committed the cardinal sin of filing a false copyright strike on a parody channel. It took several months and several million views worth of exposed videos to get her to finally apologize for her behavior. The only problem is, her apology isn't even an apology, just 4 20-something burnouts with vocal fry telling each other how beautiful and amazing they are. Veronica goes in the F tier. Now we come to the synagogue of YouTube. First up, we have this cute little fella, Ethan Klein. He's one half of H3H3 Productions, and I'm not including his wife Ela on here because when there's a failure with a channel ran by a couple, it's the man's fault for not steering the ship. Ethan's given out an apology twice, both times for not communicating with his audience. The first time, he and Ela slowly began moving away from doing exclusively reaction videos, and the second time they'd taken a break on their main channel for about 3 months to work on their podcast, only to put out a video that was nothing more than an ad for their video game to fans that were starving for their old school content. I will say Ethan does sound more genuine than your average YouTuber, and he's far more personable. Both apologies were well received, but it wasn't as if they were in the midst of a giant controversy, just mismanaging their channels. He does a good job of explaining the concept of burnout as a YouTuber. It's a pretty difficult line to walk when most people watching you are stuck doing the same garbage job every single day while you're raking in millions making fun of people. But anyone who's experienced burnout of any kind can tell you that it's all relative. I think any big YouTuber who feels the need to make an apology video could learn a lot from these videos, so I'm gonna put it in the A tier. Next up, we have Leafy. No one cares about him, he's never coming back, and his videos were never good. His apology is one of the most contrived apologies I've ever heard.
And I'm willing to admit that I am in the wrong here, and I'm sorry. And I would also like to thank everybody that has supported me through this whole thing. You know, without the people that supported me through this whole thing, There's no way I would have been able to go through this.
He made a video bullying some autistic guy without realizing he was an autistic guy, which caused his autistic fans to go make fun of the autistic guy. So I'm gonna put Leafy in the A category for autism, because only an autistic guy can make a video about an autistic guy without having the basic understanding of human social cues that lets you understand that the guy you're making fun of is autistic. This right here is whichever Paul brother filmed the dead guy in the woods. His apology was scripted and he isn't very good at reading, but he kept it short. He didn't seem like he had any emotions, but that is normal for lizard people. Gonna have to put this one in the C tier, but then I'm gonna move it up to the S tier because he donated $1 million to a bunch of suicide prevention organizations, and that's way better than any apology. Last, and definitely least, if you catch my drift, is Pro Jared. Pro Jared was born August 28, 1985, precisely 9 months after his mother was artificially inseminated with a vial of pure Soylent extract. He made a name for himself like most tiny nerds do by reviewing video games on YouTube. He was pretty good at it too, racking up over 1 million subs and even scoring himself a smoking hot wife light years out of his league. But, as the old saying goes, power corrupts, and absolute power will make a shy nerdy guy cheat on his wife with his best friend's wife and solicit nudes from fans. And that's exactly what Jared did. How do we know this? Because he did the one thing you don't want to do in any relationship, but especially in one where you've been an unfaithful sexual deviant behind your wife's back, which is block her on Twitter and tell everyone you're having a nice, amicable divorce reached mutually after many intensive hours of couples therapy. Now, Jared's wife, Heidi, being a redhead, had a few things to say about this, mainly that he'd been in a long-term affair with his friend's wife, Holly, and had been soliciting nudes from fans. And of course, it didn't take long for Jared's nudes to be leaked. And as with all nudes sent by men, they were of course less than flattering. Almost immediately, his subscribers began to bleed out like a stuck pig, losing 100,000 in the course of a day, which at 10% of his total audience is a record for YouTube. Jared made no formal response to any of these allegations for over a week, and when he finally did break his silence, it was with another blog post on Twitter, where he put forward his golden defense, that his wife had been cucking him. Now, I'm willing to look past the cheating. I understand that relationships are messy. He's definitely a disgusting creep for soliciting nudes from fans, but it's not a crime. I'm willing to look past all of that. But there's one thing I know for certain in this world, and that's
that cuckolds will not be tolerated.
Oh, there's also this guy on Twitter named Mumkey Jones who won't quit crying about not being on a tier list, probably because he got all his channels deleted for not performing the proper blood sacrifices after he received his silver play button. His apology video is just him talking about wanting to kill himself for 30 minutes because he cheated on his beautiful girlfriend with a furry pedophile who looks like a teenage boy, so I'm gonna put him up here in the S tier next to the Paul brother so he can hopefully use his experience with people that hang themselves to help him not kill himself.